text number 5 and text number 30. These are verses spoken by Prahlada to Hiranyakashipu. Our little one here, do you know who is Prahlada? No? Do you know who Lord Nrsingadev is? Half man, half lion, incarnation of Lord Vishnu? Yeah. So, Lord Nrsingadev appeared to protect Prahlada. Yeah? Prahlada was a little boy, 5 years old. How old are you? You're 5. Same age as Prahlada. When he was very young, he had as a father someone who was an asura. There's two. There's the divine persons and the demoniac persons. Sura, like demigods, they're divine. And then the opposite, asura. And he was the best of the asuras. He was a big demon. Big demon. And his interest was to become God. He had a big material desire. He wanted to control the universe forever. So he underwent austerities for a long time to get a benediction that he could become eternal. You know that story? Yeah? But Lord Brahma, when he came, he said, I can't give you eternality because I'm not eternal. So I ask for something else that I can give you. So I can't be killed this way, that way, the other way, the other way, the other way. And Brahma said, okay. You have that benediction. But he was killed by Lord Nrsingadev, who wasn't man or beast, and all of those things. So Prahlada was his son. And after his father came back from doing all those austerities and getting really powerful, Prahlada, when he was 5, he started going to school. Just like you. Probably. You started to go to school yet? Yeah. Good. So when he went to school, there were 2 teachers. The 2 teachers were sons of the chief priest of the demons. So they were trying to train him how to become a little demon. Well, he wasn't interested. But the good fortune is, even before he was born, before Prahlada was born, he was in the womb of his mother, and his mother heard from Narada Muni. You know who is Narada Muni? Narada Muni. So Narada Muni taught his mother, and he was in the womb, and he heard everything. And somehow he remembered everything that he heard from even when he was within the womb. I mean, generally, we don't remember things we heard yesterday. But he remembered from when he was still in the womb. So he was very, very spiritually elevated. So his father placed his son, 5-year-old boy Prahlada, in the care of these teachers that are trying to teach him how to become an asura. And then his father called him one day, please tell me the best thing that you've learned in school. You can say in school, best things that you learned from your teachers. What's the best thing that you've learned from your teachers? Now, his father was thinking these two brothers who were trying to teach him to become an asura. That's what the father thought. But Prahlada didn't think he was learning anything from those two. What he had learned was from Narada Muni. So he said the following verse. It's Canto 7, Chapter 5, verse number 5, 755. Sadhu manye sura varya dehinam sada samudvigna diyam asat grahat edvatma patam griham andakupam vanam gato yad darim ashrayeta. So here's Prahlada's answer. Oh, best of the Asuryas, oh, best of the Asuras, Asura Varya, the best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, who is Narada, any person who has accepted a temporary body and a temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because I've fallen into a dark well where there is no water, but only suffering. We should give up this position and go to the forest. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now he's speaking about his father. He's speaking to his father, but he's speaking about his father because Narada taught him there's these two classes of people. There's divisions, of course, but those who are godly and those who are demoniac. Those who are godly take shelter of the personality of Godhead. And those that are demoniac, the graha vrata, or griha medhi, those who have a body and think everything in connection with the body, that's it. The home, the paraphernalia in the home, the family members, our refrigerator, all of our stuff, all of our paraphernalia, that's it. That's like these, things are going to bring happiness. And those that have that conception, Prahlada's response to his father is, they're only embarrassed because it doesn't bring happiness, and they're filled with anxiety. Because anxiety means you don't know what's going to happen next. And realistically, we don't know we have some idea. We live our life as if we have some idea, but we really don't know what's going to happen next. We really don't know. One day we're going to wake up in the morning and not see the end of the day. We don't know when that is. One day we, get in our car to go somewhere and we may not get there. Someday, we don't know when. And there's a lot of uncertainty. But one thing we know for certain is death is for certain. At some point, everything that we take shelter of as our home, griha vrata, and our paraphernalia and our relatives and our stuff, it's impermanent. It's not the place of real happiness, although we're trying to make it, make the best use of it, make happiness out of it. And there's a standard procedure of how you go about trying to find happiness, and you connect the dots and find happiness, but it's not there. So it's filled with anxiety. One is embarrassed by anxiety, is the phrase used by Prahlada. So one who's in that compromised position, he learned from Narada. He didn't say Narada's name at any point. He doesn't say Narada's name, except for his friends, his 5-year-old class friends in school. Later he speaks. But several times he's challenged, but he doesn't say who he learned from. Because that's a big mystery. After he says this to his father flares up in big anxiety. Who taught him this Krishna consciousness? Who was that evil person that taught him Krishna consciousness? Because Hiranyakashipu had a brother. Remember his brother's name? What's his brother's name? It starts also with an H. Hiranyaksha. You remember that name? Hiranyaksha. And Hiranyaksha was killed by Vishnu in the form of a boar. But Vishnu killed him. So Hiranyakashipu, that was his younger brother. So Hiranyakashipu took it. Vishnu is my enemy, I'm going to get him. Because he did me wrong. He wanted to get back. That was his mentality. So when Prahlada is speaking, go to the forest and fix your mind on Lord Vishnu, what? Who taught you this bad stuff? So he blames the teachers. The teachers said, wait a minute, don't falsely accuse us. We didn't teach him. And you think that maybe somebody snuck in and taught him? Well, we watch him all the time. No one snuck in and taught him. So then the instruction was given to the teachers. Teach him properly. Teach him how to become a good demon. So they tried. And they wanted to know, who's that enemy? Who's that enemy that put all these polluted ideas in your mind about Vishnu? And Prahlada's response was, wow, I heard from my teacher, I heard from Narada about this friends enemies thing, but now I'm seeing it. You think Vishnu and those who are faithful to Vishnu, they're enemies. Because they think differently than you think, so they're your enemies. And those who think that way, they're in contaminated consciousness. So he's telling his teachers, you're Maya. And I don't want to learn Maya from you. No, thank you. So after spending time, he, repeated some of the lessons as if he was learning the lessons, but he wasn't interested. Then after some time, his father called him again. Same basic question, what's the best thing that you learned in school? And the thing that what Prahlada said, the best thing I've learned, the 9 processes of devotional service. That's the best thing I've learned. 9 processes of devotional service. The 9 processes are hearing about Vishnu, chanting about Vishnu or Krishna, remembering about Vishnu or Krishna, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. And the other 6 processes, they rest on those 3. Deity worship, Archanam, offering prayers, Bandhanam, becoming a servant, completely surrendering unto him, Atma Nivedana. The 9 processes of devotional service are resting upon hearing and chanting, then in turn remembering Lord Vishnu. So that's not 9, but there's 9 processes. And his father flipped out. What? Prahlad, your teachers say that they're not telling you this, and they say that it's not somebody outside telling you this. Where did you get this? Who's polluted your consciousness? And it's a very interesting answer. He doesn't say Narada. He basically says that you wouldn't understand. Matirna Krishna parataksvato va mito bipadyeta grahak pratanam adanta gobir vishatam tamishram punak punascharvata charvananam. There's this nice saying, if you want to say something nice to somebody, you can say, may you always remember Krishna. Krishna matir astu. May you always remember Krishna. What's your name? What's your name?
Sia.
Sia. Sia. One time I was visiting a home, like we're doing right now, your home, and the little girl was seated right by my side, listening to the whole class, about your age. So I asked her a question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you have an idea what you want to be when you grow up? No, not yet. What this little girl said is a pediatrician. She didn't just say a doctor, a certain type of doctor, a pediatrician. Wow. I didn't know what a pediatrician meant when I was your age. I heard the word, but I didn't know what it means. So I said, actually, you know what? I think you want to be a pediatrician that always remembers Krishna and never forgets Krishna. She said, yes, that's what I want. So whatever it is that you want to be when you grow up, whatever that is, make sure you include always remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, good. Because that's really the essence of this, the opposite, matir na Krishna. Those who are not remembering Krishna, matir na Krishna, because of their identification with the body. And identification with the body means identification with is what's in connection with the body. What's in connection with the body is the stuff that you do. Like, you know, when you grow up and you have an education, you have a career, and you'll be earning some money. Like your dad is earning some money. And with the money, you can buy stuff. You can buy a kitchen, you can buy a refrigerator, and buy a little Christmas tree over here, and some furniture, and, you know, you can buy stuff. And then that becomes your stuff. And then one becomes attached to stuff. Because the stuff is connection with the work that you do, which is then mine. I and mine. I am this body, and mine is what comes from this body, the fruits of my work. So that's for those who are attached to that conception of life, I and mine conception of life, it's not possible for such a person to remember Krishna. That's what the verse says. Now, it doesn't mean don't work and don't buy stuff, but it means don't be attached and identify with the body and the stuff that's the product of the work of this body. Because I like the verse. That's why I chose it. Parata means someone can't explain it to you. Supposing you're too much attached to the bodily conception, and they try to explain what's life like without that attachment, they can't get it. It's not to say give up the body and give up life, but life that's without that attachment, they can't understand it if someone tries to explain it. Parata, swata means their own endeavors. Swata, parata, swata, others trying, yourself trying, or mitaha. Parata, swata, mitaha. Mitaha means you get together a whole bunch of people and you try to figure it out together. You have a conference. But as long as the bodily conception of life, the I and mind conception of life pervades, then you're not going to remember Krishna. You're going to remember stuff, because that's where the consciousness is absorbed in. Now, a little bit for some of the adults. I saw a transcript, but then later I saw a little video. Srila Prabhupada was sitting with Guru Nanak. It's an important person. And Guru Nanak was leaning back, stroking his beard, saying, "Swamiji, you're a very powerful leader. And why don't we bring many leaders together and encourage people," and he moved his hand in the air like this, "let's come together and let's get together and be together." Prabhupada, he didn't even finish, and Prabhupada said, "They will never." No, it's not that Prabhupada was opposed to the idea and made no efforts to bring that about. But to bring that about, it takes Krishna consciousness. Say it positively. When there's Krishna consciousness, then people can overlook differences. But Krishna consciousness includes fundamentally going beyond the bodily conception of life. As long as one is steadfastly holding on to the bodily conception of life. Matirna Krishna Paratak, Swatak, and Mitaha. One is not going to become Krishna conscious. One will not think of Krishna. It's just a law of nature. And what's the solution for such a person? Adanta Gobir Vishatam Tamishram. Adanta Gobir. Adanta Gobir. Go means senses. And Danta is uncontrolled senses. Uncontrolled senses. Adanta Gobir. So along with the bodily conception is, what's happiness? There's objects out there, and you bring these objects out there in contact with your senses, and that's supposed to bring happiness. And that's the game plan of life. Get different objects, or more objects, or a variety of objects, and mix them in this way. It's going to equal happiness. That's the uncontrolled senses. Adanta Gobir. Vishatam Tamishram. Vishata means entering into. Tamishram means hellish life. From that mode of passion life, it leads down. In terms of consciousness and in terms of the atmosphere in which the living entity finds himself. By contact with the mode of passion, kamesha, krodesha. From involvement in rajoguna, the mode of passion, it leads to material desire. Material desire, striving to fulfill material desire, frustration. Down into frustration, darkness, ignorance, anger, kamesha, krodesha. It leads to hellish life. Now this is being spoken very early in the process of creation. This is during Satya Yuga. And people that live during Satya Yuga, there's much more mode of goodness in their life. And people even during Satya Yuga, Hiranyakashipu is a big time control person. His passion is his thing. And it leads to anger, because he becomes very angry with Prahlada. Their inclination toward Krishna is never aroused, either by the instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. Adanta gobir vishatam tamishram punak punascharvata charvananam. They're simply chewing the chewed. Punak, punash, charvata, charvananam. They're doing the same thing over and over. Doing the same thing over and over. Doing the same thing over and over. Whatever the species of life, it's doing the same things over and over. There's varieties of doing those things, but the same things. Same things. In all species of life. This is when Prabhupada speaks on this verse. It's, the dogs and the hogs and the camels and the asses, they do the same things. They do it in a slightly different way, but it's in the bodily conception of life, doing the same things according to the body they receive, but they're doing the same things. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending according to the body type. And we're doing the same things. So human form of life, the transcendental teaching is, the human form of life can be spent doing the same things. And that it's no better than an animal kind of existence. And then the higher than the animal, the special prerogative of the human form of life is you do those things in a modest way. But meanwhile, the higher faculty of the human form of life is to achieve this understanding of life's real goal. And that's Krishna matir astu. Not matir, not Krishna. I find it really interesting. What the interest, Hiranyakashipu, from the first time he heard Prahlada speak this way, he wanted to know, where did this come from? And he thought it was his teachers, and then he thought it was, somebody sneaking into the classroom or somewhere and teaching this boy, who's that somebody? Maybe it's the demigods sneaking in disguise and teaching him. Who's the, where is he? You just guard him. Make sure that the demigods don't come and teach him this bad stuff. The teachers want to know who's teaching you. His father's asking him again. And his answer is, you won't understand. Even if I tried to tell you, you won't understand. You try to your effort, you're on your own behalf, you won't be able to understand. You have a whole big discussion with a lot of elevated persons, you won't be able to understand. You're busy with uncontrolled senses, chewing the chewed, won't be able to understand. Your whole life is destined that way. Unless you can step out of that situation and go to the forest, vana, and leave behind this attached form of life. And one can leave behind the attached form of life without necessarily going to the forest. But that's, a classic in Vedic culture. The vanaprastha stage of life for those that have lived too much attached to material life. Or there's, the gradual process of regulating one's activities in family life in such a way that Krishna is at the center. And to the degree that one puts Krishna at the center, then it spiritualizes those very activities. It spiritualizes the senses, it spiritualizes the mind, it even spiritualizes the paraphernalia and the sensibility that you have when you're interacting with that paraphernalia. The human mission of life is gradually assisted. But it certainly requires proper teachings to guide your activities that way. And proper teachings require proper teachers. Proper teachers that when you're headed in a wrong direction, someone can indicate to you, excuse me, but you're headed in a wrong direction, please do some course correction. And, strongly if necessary. But teachings to help guide our activities towards the goal. And the only one that Prahlada is able to make some headway, he's not able to make any headway with his father for sure, and his teacher's practically the same, but his classmates really like it. This is chapter 5 that we're reading from. Chapter 6 is dedicated to speaking with his classmates. Now in the storyline, after Prahlada speaks the way that he speaks, his father decides to try to kill him. But he tries this and that and the other thing, and he can't kill him. And so he's like despondent. And then the teachers say, don't be despondent. We're good teachers. We'll train him up how to be a good demon. He's just a little boy. He'll get over it. We'll work him over. Because he doesn't have an alternative. Doesn't have an alternative. So that's when he goes and speaks to his classmates. And that's what gets him in trouble. Because when the teachers find out he's doing what he's doing with the classmates, they go and tell Hiranyakashipu, who threatens him. And then he gets finished. So, Prahlad Maharaj is a wonderful section of the Bhagavatam filled with essential teachings. And it's worthy of a whole seminar in itself. But we'll just take a couple of verses from Canto 7, Chapter 5. Discuss them a little bit. See if there's some discussion.
So when you said Srila Prabhupada said to that Guru Nanak that they will never listen.
They will never. That's all he said. They will never.
They will never. So in our practicality, like when I meet my friends or my family members who are not yet into Krishna consciousness, how would I go and be with their association? Should I be like detached, or how could I bring them back, or help them in this?
Well, you're an individual and they're individual, so it depends on the personalities and the relationships and everything. One of the best ways is be happy. And when they see that you're happy, they'll think, well, whatever he's into is good. And then when you say, if the opportunity presents itself to say something, then they're more inclined to take it than if you're, a bad character or grumpy or, a failure in life or something like that. They'll think, wow, this is bad stuff. And we're not going to pay any attention to a person that's into bad stuff. Because look at his life, it's a wreck. So, be happy. And be a little cautious with saying too much. No, again, it depends on the personalities. But when there is an opportunity, you're cautiously presenting something. And if they're interested, then you can, when it starts to get to be uncomfortable for them, so that's the, cross that line. But if they can see consistency in good character and good conduct and wholesomeness, that shines forward. It's gradual, in other words. Gradual, and you can help spiritualize those who aren't so spiritual yet, just by your own qualities and character and everything. You can invite them, to read something or read together or discuss something, or certainly take prasadam, and depending upon where their interest is. If you find out they have an interest in something, then if you become a little familiar where the Krishna conscious resource about that something is, you may capture their attention. Whatever that might be. Maybe it's about science. Maybe it's about cooking. Maybe it's about whatever, art or music or something. Maybe kirtan. Maybe, they like nice music, so if you can supply them with recordings that are very, very nice. They can hear about successes, successful life stories, and things like that. I got a letter the other day from a girl that's 10, and she was describing, what her life is like as a 10-year-old. That wasn't what her intention was, but that's what I was getting. And one of the things that she liked was learning violin. And one of the things that she liked the most about violin is she has a role model, a devotee woman named Janavi Harrison that plays violin from the time she was little. But now she plays violin along with kirtan. So she wants to be like Janavi. So, one of the things with relatives is they're really interested in their children. So if they can see other children are doing wonderfully, that may also help them take an interest in. there's some activities that children take part in. They read together, or there's a teacher that has a weekly children's class. And so when the children become more awake to Krishna consciousness, then it helps the parents become more awake to Krishna consciousness, because parents are thinking, my kids really need spiritual life. They're not thinking they need spiritual life. Our kids need spiritual life. You know what I mean. Okay, anything else?
One question from Radhika Priya Mataji. My question is, how will I do my duties as a mom as well as not be attached to my children? Because naturally I get attachment with my kids. Anything I do, I get attachment or some expectation. So how to come out of this, probably?
By attachment to Krishna, that's how you come out. But it's natural. Mothers have affection for their children, attachment for their children. So you just spiritualize that attachment. That is to say, Krishna, if the reality is, Krishna has awarded you with spirit souls to look after and help them in their journey of life, particularly their journey toward Krishna. So you have a service awarded to you by Krishna, and you think of the service in terms of serving Krishna. So your attachment goes to Krishna and not just to the temporary, because your attachment isn't going to make the outcome what you want the outcome to be. Attachment doesn't produce those kinds of results. The results are up to Krishna. So see the things that you do that create an attachment for you, see them in relation to Krishna and do them as a service to Krishna. Now, it's easier to say than to do, but that's the path to move on. The attachment to Krishna through the activities that you do. Okay. I think that's it. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.